Good day, everybody. Good day. I am very, very, very happy to be here. I've been several years in a row, so back by popular demand, my popular demand, of course. But I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you so much. The reason I'm happy to be here is I love this place. Let me tell you why. My name's Angel Vigil. I am a scholar and an author. I'm actually writing my 8th book right now. It's scheduled to be published in the spring of 2026, and it will thematically overlap with next year is the 250th anniversary of America, but it's also the 150th anniversary of Colorado. We're the only state to have what is called the twin anniversaries with the country in one of the 50 states. So the book thematically is going to overlap with that idea that birthdays are opportunities to reflect on the journey that you've traveled and what you've learned along the way. And then I do work at a history museum. I work at the History Colorado Museum in Denver. So I love museums, and the reason I love museums is because of what they offer us. Nowadays, because of the culture that we live in, we learn about history in the past really from two places. One is television, and the other one is movies. They're very unreliable. I mean, and the reason is their goal is not history. Their goal is entertainment, viewership, drama, and profit. Okay? No, it's entertainment. It's an entertainment vehicle. So even though if it says based on a true story, very, very, or might say inspired by a true story, and what happens is they take the kernel of some events, and then I want to invite you to go to a website. It's called Hollywood versus History. And what it does is it takes the movies portraying themselves as history, and then they do a compare and contrast. Pictures of the real person, pictures of the character, pictures of the events, pictures of what happened. Mainly what they reveal is the dramatic license taken in stories just to keep I call it the narrative momentum going forward. They literally invent people that weren't there and events that didn't happen as half of the narrative. And that's just dramatic license. So do take, when you learn history from movies or TVs, take it for what it is, which is entertainment. Really, be entertained. They do a good job. If you want to know about history, come to places like this. This is why I love places like this. Their dedication is to the truth of history in an entertainment, engaging way. The reason I love this so much is they have all the cabins. Now, today, I brought a special character today, the Mountain Man. I invite you, when I'm all done here, in fact, I encourage you to take the little path around this way. One of the cabins back there is totally dedicated to the Mountain Man character. So I'm glad today, and every one of the, last year with my 2 grandkids, we were here, we went to every single cabin because they have a cool game for kids where you get to do a stamp and collect all the stamps and everything. So we went to every single cabin, checked them all out, and then talking with Jana, I saw the Mountain Man one, and because we were talking about, well, what would I bring next year? And I said, I actually have a Mountain Man character that I performed a lot. Why don't we do that? Because you have a cabin all about it. So I encourage you, when you're looking at the museum, support this museum, come here a lot. I've been to a lot of museums. This one's cool because of all the individual cabin sites. So I encourage you to go check out the Mountain Man one. But first we're going to start with some audience participation. You ready?
Ready.
Who's ever been camping? That's good, that's good. Who's ever seen the Milky Way? Oh, that's good, that's good. Who's ever shot a bear? No, I'm just asking. Who's ever seen a bear? Okay, I know, you live up here, right? You live up here, of course you've seen a bear. Who's ever seen a bear in your neighborhood? Okay, I do know that too. Okay, so these are just some questions. Who's ever made a campfire? Who's ever spent 2 years living outdoors? Who's ever hiked 500 miles.
At one time?
One time. Notice my hands up? I got to brag about it. I did hike the Colorado Trail, 500 miles. I did hike from Denver to Durango over the magnificent Continental Divide, over the San Juans. The San Juans are the most beautiful mountains I've ever encountered in my life. So I view myself as first person. I've lived some of the experiences, other than shooting a bear, some of the experiences that I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about the mountain man. Now we're going to have a little bit more audience participation. I'm going to say mountain man, and I'm going to point to you and want to tell you what picture you have in your head. Mountain man.
Sorry.
You're good. You're still good. You're still good. Okay, I'll do it like I do it when I teach kids. The wheel of fortune spins. Where it falls, nobody knows.
Rugged.
Rugged. That's what it means. Just give me a word. Mountain man.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient.
Trapper.
Trapper. Love this.
Robert Redford with a beard.
Young Robert Redford with a hearty good beard, right? A hearty good beard. I'm going to talk about that. Okay, the wheel of fortune spins. Where it falls, nobody knows.
Grizzly.
Oh.
Mountain man.
Buckskin clothing.
Buckskin clothing. That's what it is. Buckskin clothing. Wheel of fortune spun. Right on you. Fur. Okay, wheel of fortune spun. Right on you.
I already answered.
All right. Right on you. Self-sufficient. Okay. We have images, right? There are several images that are primary in the American psyche. These are embedded us from childhood, from school, from movies, from TVs, from just the vibe of the world that we live in. One of them is one of my other characters, El Vaquero, the cowboy, you know. Cowboy is the mythos of the American West, one of the central important mythos that America has embedded into our image of ourselves. Another one of these is the mountain man, right? Say the word mountain man, people already have a formed up image about that based upon different ideas. I love that you brought up Jeremiah Johnson is who I'm going to actually say, right? Okay, right, you brought that up. Totally false. It was a movie. A lot of stuff happened there, right? A lot of stuff happened in that movie. Most of it was kind of related to the things that really happened. Let me tell you about the mountain man. Today I'm going to tell you some stories about the mountain man. This is kind of like a kindergarten show and tell also. I have a table full of cool stuff, right? I'm going to show it to you. And then my show and tells, I pass stuff around. You can look at it and make sure it all gets back here. It'll be pretty cool. At the end, if you want to come up and explore stuff on the table, I like people to have tactile experiences of what were the objects. Now, the mountain man, deeply embedded in the American mythos, characteristics of the mountain man. I'm going to just use some of the words you said. Rugged, right? Self-sufficient. These ideas of a person leaving civilization, right? Heading out to the mythical West with a purpose. I'm going to give you a short little history lesson real quickly now. Mountain man era really was very short. Lasted from about 1820 to 1840. And the reason it was the first commercial product sought in the West, and that was beaver pelt. And the reason for that is rich guys. Now, rich guys on the East Coast and over in Europe, now, I've been around rich guys a lot. They always want you to know they're rich. And their subtle cues. One is their watch. You know, they're going to spend money on the watch, all right? Two is their car. Going to spend money on the car. Back in the day, it was their hat, okay? Their hat. They wanted a beaver skin hat. Now, the reason they wanted a beaver skin hat, well, this little animal, at one time, there were about 3,000 trappers. I'm going to go between the word mountain man and trapper. There are two types of trappers. One was called the free trapper, independent. He went out on his own. He didn't work for a company. The other one was a company employee, worked for one of the fur trading companies, and then he was just on salary, and if you want to look at it like that, he was like the cowboy working for the ranch, right? So you had free trappers went out on their own, free entrepreneurs looking to make money, right? and you had the man working for a company, all looking for this little animal. This little animal is cool. It can be about this big, and this is beautiful. This is a really nice example of the pelt. And it's furry, it's soft, it goes like this. This one even has a little nose here, placed with the eyes, a little bitty ears there. This would have been the whole back of the beaver. Now, if you see a real beaver skin hat, it's not brown. And it's not all furry like this. It's got what's called a tight nap. It's a very tight nap, right? And it's light gray. The reason it's light gray, they don't use all the fur. That hat, intended for Richmond on the East Coast and Europe, had to be very special. So they only used the softest part of the hair follicle. And that is the part right against the, what would be called, I call it the skin, but it's really called the hide, right? So if you open it up, you will see, well, let me kind of get this. This one's so furry. It actually changes color to a light gray. And that is because they only use the part of the hair follicle closest to the hide, the light gray part. So what you're going to have is, if you see a real beaver skin hat, they're usually like the stovepipe hat. Tight nap, light gray. Now, something about beaver skin, and I'll tell you, one of my characters, the blood of vaqueros rolls through these veins, and one of the shows that I do is, I did it a couple of years ago here, Vaquero, America's first cowboy. The cowboy hat. Even today, it'll have a bunch of X's on the inside. Any of you own a Stetson hat? Cowboy hat, does it have X's on the inside? Okay, those X's don't mean anything. Other than to get you to spend more money. And the reason is, the X's are not standardized across manufacturers. What they're supposed to represent is how much beaver skin is in the hat. Most cowboy hats, nowadays for cost actually, are a combination of pelts. Rabbit fur, bear even, beaver. The best hats, the most expensive, are going to have a lot of beaver in the felt. And the way hat manufacturers designated it is the number of X's. But honestly, one hat manufacturer might have a 5X hat that has as much beaver in it as another manufacturer with a 10X hat, right? So you can't go by the X's. That's false advertising. Ask the question, what's the percentage of beaver skin in my cowboy hat? That's the answer you want. So beaver skin hat, 100% beaver. All right, so here's what we got here. Hey, show and tell. Pass it around, make sure everyone gets to see it, okay? So check it out, open it up, you see the gray. It's very soft, it's nice, water repellent, they live in the water, it's beautiful, makes a beautiful hat. So you had thousands of trappers, mountain men coming out west looking for the beaver, really coming to the Rocky Mountains, our area, the Rocky Mountains. The reason is, that's where the beaver is. It's kind of like Willie Sutton. When Willie Sutton said, they asked him, how come he rob all those banks? That's where they keep the money. Same thing, the trappers. Why are you going out to the Rocky Mountains? That's where the beaver lives, okay? In the rocks, in the lakes, in the rivers of the Rocky Mountains. So they're coming out here, they're looking for the beaver. It's a cash product, you have to remember that. Two good movies, one of them actually is Jeremiah Johnson with Robert Redford. I do recommend you see it. It has the feeling of wild men living out west and all the things that might happen when you're out west, right? With people, with Indians, with other trappers, with nature. Nature is your greatest foe when you're on your own out in the wild. I've experienced it. It's your greatest foe. The other one I recommend is The Reverend has Leonardo DiCaprio. He won his first Oscar in it. It's a semi-true story of a man named Hugh Glass. And then the story tells a story. He was a trapper, got mauled by a bear, wrapped himself up in the bear. His compatriots left him for dead, right? But he survived with revenge as his single goal. So that's another movie loosely based on a true character, a true history story, dramatized for entertainment. But I recommend both of them because I love movies. I think movies are good if you go into them with a little bit of understanding. Okay, this is stretchy. If I want to know more, I better read the book or I better go to the museum, find out the facts because I've been entertained by the movie. So you got Jeremiah Johnson, you got Hugh Glass, Jeremiah Johnson, and the Reverend movie from several years ago with Leonardo DiCaprio. One had Robert Redford in it. Two good places to land if you just want to see a movie about a mountain man. Okay, so the mountain men are coming out here looking for this little beaver. Lasted for 20 years only. The reason it lasted for only 20 years is fashion changed. People didn't want the beaver skin hat anymore. They wanted an even more exclusive hat. Silk. So once fashion changed to silk hats, you know who is really happy about that? The beaver is really happy about that, right? Because the beaver trade was over. The beaver trade was actually over. Now, I'm kind of playing loose and fast here because there are a lot of reasons it came to an end. One of them was human nature. You know, we are the worst predator on earth. We are the worst thing that has ever happened to this planet, right? Here's an example. One of the reasons the beaver trade ended was we killed them all, right? We just, after a while, it's like most product that you're taking out of nature. If you don't balance your work with nature, and now the word, of course, is sustainability, right? If you don't take care of nature and you just rip everything out of it, one day it will not be there for you anymore. So two things actually happened. One is the over hunting and collecting of the beaver. The beaver populations collapsed actually in the Rocky Mountains. So by nature, we killed it. The next part is, fortunately for the few beaver that were left over, fashion changed and people changed, and what they wanted was a silk hat all of a sudden. So the beaver trade was a very short historical period in America. Generally, people like to say from 1820 to 1840. Now, let's spend a second about what did they need when they went out, right? What did they actually need? Well, they needed stuff. How many of you have been camping? Who takes a tent? Who takes a stove? Who takes some food? Who takes a rifle? Who takes a hatchet? Who takes a fire starter? Who takes something about water? Something about water, really. Something about water, right? Okay. Who takes some hiking boots from REI? REI hiking boots, right? You gotta have your. Who takes some hiking poles? Hiking poles, right? Who takes a flashlight? Okay, now I'm describing modern life, right? Did they have any of that stuff? No, not a single trapper went to REI to get his stuff, okay? The embarkation point was St. Louis. St. Louis was the place where really the Oregon Trail wagons took off, the Mormon Trail wagons took off, heading over to Utah. All the people coming on the Santa Fe Trail coming down started in Missouri. People coming to trap. St. Louis, middle point of the United States, at that time was a major, still is a major city, but it's a major embarkation, departure place where you could get everything you needed before you started your journey into the wild, wild west, right? For whatever purposes those were, you had to have something with you. Now, the task of the mountain man had some very particular needs. One of them was your tools. What tools do you need to do this job? Had to get them in St. Louis. Either you had them with you or the company that hired you might supply you with some of them. So I up here actually have a lot of different tools that you might need. Now, one of them would be this. Now, you couldn't take what I call a little old paring knife or butter knife with you. You had to take a real knife with you, right? This is actually a historical knife. It's called a bench fort knife. It's a knife you might find in bench fort. Has the wood, has the brass little wire around it like this, has a very sharp tang in it. The reason is you're either going to kill something with it or you're going to skin something with it, right? And I use the word kill on purpose because people forget the job here was to kill some animals. It's like the bison hunter, right? Or the person going after cattle to get the tallow or the fat or the hide. You actually have to kill the animal. So you have to be adept at it, but you need the right tools for doing that. So you needed a knife that was substantial that you would have with you like this. So this is a really good historical example. This style is called the bench fort knife. Now, Ben's Fort was on the Santa Fe Trail, right? I mean, on the Santa Fe Trail coming across. Ben's Fort was the oasis on the prairie where you could get all the supplies you needed between Missouri and Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so, if you've ever been to Ben's Fort, I totally recommend that. At Ben's Fort, you can do a trifecta in one day. I don't recommend it one day. I recommend getting a motel room in La Junta, spend a long weekend there, because within 50 miles of each other, meaning a very short drive, you got Ben's Fort, you got Amache, the Japanese internment camp, and you got Sand Creek. Literally, all in a little tight triangle there. You could knock them all off in one day just by stopping and reading a couple of signs and keeping moving. Or you could take a long weekend and truly spend some time at each of those sites. But that's really doable in our state. So you could get a knife like this at Ben's Fort. It's called a Ben's Fort. So you had to have a really, really good knife. The next thing you had to have is something for water. So I made this myself. And the reason is, this is what's neat. In a way, you could call me a reenactor. I actually have 5 historical characters, all in different costumes. I'm a historical reenactor. Not only do I write books, not only am I a scholar, give lectures all the time about something about history, not only do I work at a history museum, teaching history all day long, there's so much stuff available for me, you know, on the internet nowadays. Hey, send me that kit for the water thing, okay? Because the reenactor business is a real business, and some people have it as their hobby and maybe as their semi-profession, maybe their profession. So there's a lot of reproduction equipment available for you. So I decided I wanted an example of what the real water container might be like. It'd be made of wood. Could have been an army one made out of some sort of metal, but really the wood one was the main one used. And then, so this was a kit I bought. You can buy a kit to make yourself one like this. And then there's a problem with it though. It's wood. So wood's going to leak all your water out. You need to seal it. Nowadays you just buy the stuff and pour it in there and slosh it around. What would you use back in the day? Pitch. Wood sap. Had to be, who's ever gotten their fingers sticky with wood sap? Sticks on there, doesn't it? I mean, it has to almost wear off. Even if you pull it off, you're going to pull your skin off. So what happens is this. So you get the wood sap, and then you melt it. It turns into like syrup. Pour it in here. It's called pitch. Slosh it around like that. Make sure it gets everywhere. When it dries, you've totally sealed it. Then you have your wooden water container. When I was doing my hiking, the main issue is always water. Human beings can only live 3 days without water, right, generally. So water. Have your water with you just like this. So you got to have your water with you. You have to be able to make a fire, right? Nowadays, really nice. I like that, okay? Did they do that? No, they didn't do that. Here's what they had to do. Flint and steel. Now, most people haven't seen what flint is like. Flint is a stone. It's a rock in the ground. This came from southwestern Wyoming. What I love about flint is it's like petrified wood. It's very pretty when you crack it open. You can see how pretty it is. So when you look at flint like this, it's very pretty. You might mistake it for petrified wood if you just kind of not knowledgeable what you're really looking at. If you look at it like this in the ground, you might walk right past it thinking it was just a dumb old rock in the ground, right? Here's the thing about flint that's cool about it. You get your steel. Now this is made by people in a factory from iron ore. So you got to trade at the trading post or get it before you take off. Get your steel. You're not going to carry around this, right? You're going to hope you can find this, okay, in the ground. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to get small little shards of it, kind of like this, and have these in your little pack. You always have a bag with you called your possibles bags. I have several of them up here as examples. This one, of course, is deer skin. This one's deer skin. This one's bison hide right here with some antelope antler on it and everything, you know. So you got your possibles bag, and in your possibles bag, you have all your equipment with you. You also have another animal with you, either a horse or a mule. And then you have a saddle on it, not like a cowboy western saddle. You have what's called a pack saddle. Looks like the skeleton of a saddle. And you've just lashed all your equipment on it like that. So you got all this stuff you're carrying with you. You didn't get that pack from REI to take your stuff with you, right? You have your animal with your stuff on it, or you have your possibles bag. So here's the deal with flint. It's not like a regular rock. Listen. Sounds like glass, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a different composition than regular rock, than iron ore. It's more related to volcanic glass, volcano glass rock. I love that it has a different sound to it. The other thing about it is when you break it like this, usually I wear this around my neck when I'm in this outfit. I didn't today because I have these two microphones up here, and I knew from experience it just makes that raspy and messes everything up. But this is the knife I like to wear with this outfit. In here, another antler bone, and then this is flint right here. This is a piece of flint. If I were to do this, blood all over. The reason is flint has a characteristic. If you crack it or break it, the edges are sharp as a razor blade. And you have something called a knapping tool, K with a K, K-N-A-P-P-I-N-G. You hit it and you block off chunks of it, right? And then you're left with something sharp as a razor blade. That characteristic is the reason Native Americans use flint for what tool? Arrowheads. Anything needing a sharp thing. If you're going out in the wild looking for arrowheads, you're always looking for a flint arrowhead. Okay, now I'm looking for a sharp edge here, right? So what you got is, this is going to build your fire. Now, what you really need is what's called your tinder pile, something super dry. Cattails, we used to call it punk, but cattails, like cotton on the inside, shaved bark. This is hemp. Back then they had hemp. This is called char cloth. And what you do with char cloth, you just throw some cotton cloth in a tin, throw it in the fire. It doesn't burn it, but it heats it up and turns it into charcoal. And then you can put this char cloth on the flint like this, and then the spark lands on this, and then you get that orange ember, then you baby it, get it going, then you put it under your little, small little triangle, teepee-shaped tinder pile, and then you're close to the ground. And then what you do is, with your flint, you get a sharp edge here, see where we get this is going. There we go. You see it? Hate it. It's hard, right? You got to get the tinder pile just perfect. The wind, forget it. The wind's not your friend, right? What if it's damp or rainy outside, right? You know what I like? That's what I like. Okay, I've thought about these mountain men. I know they're tougher than me, okay? I'm not going to pretend I'm as tough as them. Almost, but not really, okay? No, this is the deal. I've made these fires like this. One, you got to know what you're doing, but you got to be lucky too that would eventually turn into a fire. See the sparks? Yeah. It's cool, isn't it? That's you had to be good at it because that was your fire, right? Both food, but mainly heat, right? Don't forget the fire. You're out in the elements a lot. So, got to have that going on. Got to have your flint and steel and everything. This is heavy. Why not pass it around? Just be careful with it, okay? Do know it's very, very heavy and its edges are sharp. Okay, I'm not going to pass this around because this will cut you. This is another stone you could use. Don't recommend it. It's obsidian, right? One of my characters is Tezcatlipoca, Lord God Supreme of the Aztec people. In that character, I tell the origin stories of the Aztec people. In Tezcatlipoca, the Aztec people used obsidian for their knives and all their sharp things. The problem with obsidian, in my estimation, it's even closer to glass. And so if you do it wrong, it just goes like that. But its edges are sharp as a piece of broken glass. But I think you have to be, for modern era, very, very careful with it, with obsidian. But obsidian's beautiful, always shiny, shiny, glass reflective black. I'm not going to pass this around because it's just one step beyond. Okay, then what you're going to need, this guy. whose hair looks like this in the morning? You don't have to raise your hand, but I know. Okay, this is somebody in the morning, right? Okay, this is bison. Okay, now this animal has two names, bison and buffalo. You could use either one, right? They're interchangeable. The word bison's the proper name, though. I always teach young people or general audiences about the word buffalo because it's just one of the things I like about my job. I got a lot of useless knowledge. Just as I'm a walking trivia person, right? So the word buffalo, where that word came from, and now it's penetrated so that it's equal to the word bison. Remember all the trappers coming over? They came over from France. They were French trappers that came over here. Now these French trappers coming over here, what language are they speaking? French language, right? So they coming across the Great Plains of the United States. They see an animal they've never seen before, the bison. Bison on over in Europe, right? So they didn't know what to call it. But in the French language, they thought it was a wild ox, a wild oxen. What I love about language is that when two languages come close to each other, they cross-fertilize, and words they get mutated, right? They get changed. And you can hear the word and then, oh, I see where that came from. So here's an example. In the French language, the word for wild oxen is buffalo. So they're walking around talking about that buffalo. See what happened? Then it became anglicized into buffalo. That's where the word buffalo came from. Now, I do need to give you a little asterisk. I'm an author. I've written a lot of books. Let me tell you about history. Some people think I put some wrong facts in my book. You know what I tell them? Write your own book. This is my interpretation of this set of facts. A lot of the facts of history, I love this phrase, they're lost in antiquity. They're lost in the fog of history, right? And when you trace it down and it comes down, scholars come up with different interpretations. I have heard different interpretations of where the word buffalo came from. I've also heard the word buffalo coming from the French word buffalo. I like that quite a bit, all right? So I've leaned over this way. Someone else might lean over another way. That's what makes history so interesting. The search for the truth, you might never find it, but the journey toward the search, always worth it. So that's a little bit about this animal. Because not only were they also looking for the beaver, they called it the buffalo. They were looking for the buffalo, right? The buffalo. Pass this around, check that guy out. Now excuse me a second. You notice this is much more wild. This is from the crown of an animal. This would have been the top of the bison head. The hide is much, much thicker. That is why Native Americans would use bison hide for the covering of their teepees. Depending upon the size of the teepee, the size of the bison, might take 20 or 30 hides sewn together with bison sinew. Remember, they didn't get thread from the sewing store, right? Bison sinew, they'd sew it together to cover up their teepees. You got the beaver skin. Pass that around. Pass that around that way. Okay, then you're going to need your axe. No need to explain that. Now, saving that till later. You're going to need your rifle, okay? I'm not going to pass this around just because it's too big and cumbersome, but it's perfectly safe. I don't even bring the black powder. That'd be the explosive material. I've had law enforcement come up to me during some of my talks, especially if I'm in a school. Can't bring a gun into a school nowadays, so it just can't happen. But sometimes public and law enforcement will come by because they got to report, man in the park with a gun. Meanwhile, it's me, right? See something, say something. Somebody did the right thing. Law enforcement comes over, they check it out. I'm very careful to tell them there's no igniter here. I never bring the black powder, right? But I like to bring the rifle because I think people should see it. Okay, you're welcome to come and pick it up. Do be forewarned. It's very heavy. Now, the rifle of choice for the trappers coming across was Hawkins, old lady Hawkins. Because the Hawkins brother out of St. Louis made the best rifles for the trappers. Now, one of the reasons they made the best rifles, in their day, they were considered lightweight rifles, as opposed to the Kentucky rifle, rifles that might have been used on more in the Appalachian area or something, the long rifle or the Pennsylvania rifle. But when I picked this up, there's no way this is a light rifle. But in its day, it was considered a light rifle. 50 caliber, nice big stone in. Now here's what we got going. We have what you put in it. You put these little round balls in them, right? You could buy them or trade for them, but most of the time you had to make them yourself. And what you made them with is you made them with lead. Now this is St. Louis bar lead, right? So here's what we got. Came from St. Louis. Here's the thing about lead. That's why they use it for pencils, right? Lead pencils. It's a very soft metal. Don't bend it too much or it's going to break and stuff. But this is what you'd use. You get your bar lead, have it in your, packed on your animal, right? And then you'd have a little mold, and you melt this, break off a chunk, throw it in your tin cup, melt it again. Doesn't turn to syrup. Remember, pitch, tree sap turns to syrup. This turns to something more akin to mercury. It's a metal, right? It's a metal, becomes liquid like this. Pour it in your mold, let it dry. When it dries, you've made your own shot, lead shot. So I got 2 of these, pass these around, check them out. I think they're interesting to see what they actually used to make what they're making. So they had to make their own, then they had to carry their gunpowder with them. Now here's what we got going. Remember that bison? Well, this is a bison horn cap. Now horn is actually bone. It's something just like the bones in your body. So it's hollow, so you can put whatever you want to in it. But you can see this one's all nicked up. The reason is they're fighting, they're scraping against trees, they're digging in the ground. So horn in its natural shape on the animal, all beat up, right? So what you do then, though, is you make a product. You make a consumer product out of it. What you make out of it is you make a gunpowder horn. And same thing, this this is this. Kind of shine it up real nice, plug it up with wood, and then mine here, again, this is elk antler. And it's a very specific, it's marked on the bottom, 80 grams. So when I'm using the black powder, I don't want to pour this into the barrel because it's the same reason when you're cooking, they never say measure your flour over your bowl. Measure it over here, make sure it's level, then pour it into the bowl because there's a chance over the bowl, oh man, too much flour, right? Same thing with the gunpowder. Pouring it in, no. Pour it in your container, get the right amount, then pour that into the barrel. And then this is how this works. This is a consumer product that you would trade bison, but trade who knows what for, right? At the trading post or get or buy if you had any money in St. Louis before you took off. Started as this, ends up like this. Check them both out. You done with this?
Yep.
Everyone get a chance to see? Okay, that's good, that's good. Okay, so now we got a knife, got an axe, got a fire starter, got a water thing going on, got a possibles bag, got our gunpowder thing. Let me show you the rifle. Okay, here's what we got. I actually have 2 of these. I brought the flint one, okay? Both of them are big and heavy like this. They're both wonderful tools. They're both 50 caliber. What you do is you pour your gunpowder in there, right? Then you put a piece of fabric here is what you put. Piece of cotton fabric. Then you put the ball on. Then you get this going. You tap it down, just like that. So you got your powder, you got your piece of fabric, which is like a lubricant. Then you got the ball, then you tap it down, still not ready. In this rifle, you got the firing mechanism. It's called a flint lock. The reason is, remember the flint when I hit it with the steel, you saw the spark? Yeah. Well, same thing here. Little well here. Put some gunpowder in there, right? Then there's a little hole that goes into the barrel. then there's actually a piece of flint right here. And then you lower this down, the striker, and then when you hit it, a piece of spark will happen, ignite the gunpowder, boom, the whole thing goes off. I love language where sayings come from. One of the sayings is, don't be a flash in the pan. The flash in the pan, all over. So that's where the saying, don't be a flash in the pan, came from. The other saying, don't go off half-cocked. You know why? You cock this twice. There's 2 triggers, okay? Okay, here's what we got. Halfways, half-cocked. Nothing's going to happen. So you go off half-cocked, nothing's going to happen, right? Cock it a second time. One of these is a hair trigger. Literally, I just have to put my finger on it. Not that one. Set. There it is. There's a couple of steps to it, but then what happened, it's always technology, they had to have the flint, right? Had to have the piece of flint to put in there. Well, then they changed to something called a percussion cap. And then that was also during the era of the trapper. They went from flintlock to a percussion cap. And then it's like just a little, how many of you when you were kids had that cap gun and you had the caps and there's a little gunpowder in there and had a smell? The same thing, you had a cap here, striker comes down, same thing happens, hits the whole thing, and then it shoots it off. So it's either percussion cap or flint. I brought the flint one today because it connects to the idea of flint I taught you about, starting the fire like that. So this would be a 50 caliber, Old Lady Hawken. This was essential when you went out. Not only for protection, but for, remember, you had to kill animals. That was your job out there. Kill animals, collect skin, bring it in. It was a cash crop, and you bring it in, and there you are. Now, this is the beaver trap. Here's the thing of the beaver. They're in the water. You got to go in the water. Close to the bank though, right? Now, the beaver trap, I can't pick it up yet, okay? Beaver trap has this ring on it on a chain. The reason is, if you don't have this part, the beaver will get caught, take off, you've lost the beaver, and you've lost the trap. So what you do is, you get in the water, with another long stake, you put this in there like that, right? Get this there just like that. And you got it all set like that. This is a beaver leg. Okay, this is a beaver leg in the trap. They knew how to survive in the wilderness with nothing but your self-sufficiency and the few items you brought with you. You had built up relationships with Native American tribes. Many, many, many of these trappers, from Kit Carson all down, they all married Indian women. It made an alliance with the Indian tribes. Many of them had 2 wives, a country wife and a city wife. They just had 2 wives, that's what they had. So, they had alliances with Indians. That skill set would be perfect for what type of job? Guides. They became guides for the Oregon Trail going across. They became guides for the Mormon Trail coming across. They became guides for, don't forget, the military's really coming out west because of the Indian wars just really firing up aggressively. Only one person had all the skill sets. How are we going to we don't even know what to bring. We don't know where to go. We don't know how to live out here. The Indians don't know who we are. Oh, how about getting Kit Carson to help us, okay? Okay, all these trappers, now we'd call it pivoted, right? They pivoted toward the last part of their life. Guides is what they did. Indian scouts, Indian agents also, right? Because they'd already built up a relationship with native tribes. They actually had, after the trapper era ended for them, they had a second era. One of them I like to tell people about is a man named Manuel Lisa. I describe him equal to Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark got out of the press. Manuel Lisa was out there 2 years before them. Lewis and Clark started their trek in 1804. Lewis and Manuel Lisa in 1802. Remember, this was before the Louisiana Purchase. He got agreements from the French government to go out there and be allowed on what was French territory. And that's what he would do. Then what would happen is he later segued into guide, trapper, the first man to set up forts in the Northwest. He built the first fort in the Northwest. I view him as the equal to Lewis and Clark. The other one would have been Mariano Medina, the founder of Loveland, spent 30 years as a trapper, then became a trader, then became an established businessman. He's acknowledged as the founder of Loveland. So all these men transitioned to a whole nother career, continued to contribute to the development of the American West, only eventually to fade into the annals of the disappearing American West. I just got the wrap it up sign. As you know, I could keep talking. But real quickly, Q&A, let's do that. Yes?
What role did the rendezvous have in all this?
Oh, rendezvous was important. Remember, you're out there, the French word, rendezvous. Remember, all these guys were French trappers, right? So the gathering of people, I call it the party. Remember, they'd been out there by themselves really hard. Generally, once a year, they would all come together for a rendezvous, French word for a gathering, right? And the natives would come, Native Americans would come, trappers would come. The party's an exaggeration, but truthfully, it's like cowboys coming into town, right? You get to meet other people like you, trade stories, tall tales, lies, truths, trade wisdom about what happened, trade for goods. That's what really happened at rendezvous, trade for goods. Very important part of the Mountain Man experience was the rendezvous. Yes, another question? Yes?
Where were some of the famous rendezvous?
Oh, you know what? They were all in the Rocky Mountains. A lot of them, honestly, in the Rocky Mountains. A lot of them in Montana. A lot of them in Idaho, not Iowa. The other I-state, Idaho, and then in Wyoming. The Mountain Man Museum is in Wyoming, Pinedale, Wyoming. I recommend you go there. Yes.
Levante's Hole is where old Dillon used to be, and that was our local rendezvous.
Oh, stand up, tell everybody. I don't think people heard that. This is good news.
Ooh, it's fun. All right, Levante's Hole was our local rendezvous point. So if you've been to Dillon and you see Levante Way, Levante Street, Levante Drive, it's named for Levante, who was the lead, most well-known trapper to set up out in this area. And Levante's Hole is at the confluence, or the main points of the three rivers, the Snake, the Blue, and the 10 Mile, which was where the more recent, the third version of Dillon was, before it was relocated to its current spot. So Levante was the big rendezvous point.
That's why you love historians. They can expand the conversation. I love that. Okay, one more question, just because I know we're on a time thing here. Yes?
Recently, I've been watching Fox News History Channel.
Okay.
And they're putting out these mini one-hour shows about famous people of the West. Have
Yes.
you seen that?
I have seen that.
How accurate are those shows?
Okay, this is off the book, but I got to tell you, I work at a history museum. I'm only going to land one place, the absolute truth of history. Our country right now is in a large conversation about what stories get told, who gets to tell it, what part of the story gets told. I work at a history museum. Part of our internal conversation now is a directive from the federal government about that the national parks, the signage, they can only talk about rainbows and butterflies, right? And then that's not the whole truth of history. So that causes a real problem for us in Colorado. We do have a Macho the Japanese internment camp, and we do have Sand Creek. There's only one truth to tell about those two stories, or else don't even start talking about those two stories, which is a huge disservice, right? Those stories are fine, not the complete story. I always encourage people, there's always more history. This is what I tell school kids. Whatever you learn at the surface is interesting. Go 2 or 3 steps down, even more interesting. The stories are more interesting. There's more drama. There's more conflict. There's more resolution. There's more joy. But they're buried down like that because people like to skim history at the top. If you go deeper, you never would have heard about Levante, right? And the 3 rivers. That's what I mean about going a little bit deeper on that. So the answer to the question is perfectly fine, incomplete. Because it's sugar-coated. That's all I got to say.
Narrator is the actor from Fraser.
Oh, that's going to work. Okay, I don't want to come down hard, but I'm a historian. I only got one part of one history to deliver here. Absolute truth. Demand it as an American citizen. That's the only thing going to make our country strong. It's the only thing going to give you a more interesting engagement with history. Okay, my name's Angel Vigil. I love coming here. I love this venue. Thank you so much. You're welcome to come up and look at stuff.